Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe. The numbers are just down there. You can contact them, book for a reservation or anything that you'd want from a hotel. Any service you'd want from a hotel, Protea Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe is the best place for you to go to. So today we're going to be talking about corruption. It is a lot. It is going on in the country a lot. We are hearing arrests. We are hearing this money has gone this way. We are hearing 500 million. We are hearing everything rotating on around corruption. But most importantly, what we are going to center on is what the president came out, the revelation the president came out and noticed of the corruption scandals going on in Parliament and also in the Ministry of Health. So it is what we are going to dive on and discuss and see what is happening and what are the solutions at hand currently, and are the solutions the best way to tackle this problem? Well, today I'm being joined by Mr. David Kizito, who is from Transparency International, and remember we have had him a number of times here, and it is a pleasure that he's going to take us through this. A beautiful morning to you, sir.
Good morning, viewers and our hosts. It's indeed a pleasure being here again to speak about a topic that we are so passionate about, but a topic that dearly concerns each and every Ugandan out there. So we are glad to be here again.
Okay. Maybe someone would want to be reminded about Transparency International.
Transparency International, for the viewers, we are a non-government organization. Okay. So we are not in government. We are independent of government, and we are in over 100 countries globally. So in Uganda, we've been around since 1993, and our main mandate or our business is to fight corruption. Though our approach now is mainly towards preventive approaches, and of course that includes mobilizing citizens to report any issues of misuse of resources and anything that concerns the public, what is supposed to belong to the public. So that's where we come from, and in Uganda we have about 54 districts where we directly operate, but that doesn't discourage you from reporting any case of corruption outside those districts in which we operate, but also have programs that stretch beyond what we know as corruption. We have programs in land, you have issues to do with land corruption. We have programs in extractives, oil and gas, and we are currently having programs on corruption in climate change financing. We know climate change is one of those hard-hitting things that are disturbing us currently. Then we have our normal programs in public service delivery, so that would include health, education, production, where we think we need to have a keen eye to ensure that what rightfully belongs to the citizens is awarded to them. Okay.
And now recently the president came out and they gave revelations about corruption that is happening in the Parliament, in the Ministry of Finance. What is your overview regarding this?
So what happens is that we shouldn't believe that it's the first time the president has received these revelations.
Sure.
However, the action probably comes at a time, we are going into a hot political season. We've seen scandals previously. We've had scandals in the relief items in Karamoja. We've had other scandals that we think probably would have wanted to see the pronouncements of the president. However, that didn't come timely. It's until recently, I think in this recent budget speech, that the president decided to say something on the corrupt. However, it stems from a long time period of weakness. When you look at the anti-corruption agencies, these are supposed to operate independently. We have the Inspectorate of Government. We have the Financial Intelligence Authority. We have the Auditor General, we have the PPDAs, we have the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecution. All these are supposed to operate independently without being commanded by the president on what they should do. So by the time the president comes out to express his pronouncements publicly, that means there is a big problem. And when you look at the institutions to which the president is making pronouncements, Parliament, for example, Parliament is an independent arm of government, where any business in Parliament, no other arm should interfere with it. So by the time you see pronouncements coming from the head of the state towards an institution like Parliament, and immediate action is taken, I think we have a problem when it comes to the fight against corruption. We've seen pronouncements such as Chisanja kuna mchezo. We've seen there have been lots of pronouncements from the head of the state, which I think are good. However, when it comes to now the actual implementation of, these pronouncements, we are going to do this, we are going to do that, I think we don't see that tangible impact. Coming back to what's happening, of course, on social media and everywhere, we've seen lots of issues relating to corruption. Of course, before investigation is done and, there's successful prosecution, they become allegations. So we know there are lots of allegations that Parliament is corrupt. Of course, an allegation has to be proven. So I think that's where we are now with the arrests we've seen. We've seen the censure campaigns going on, and I think Honorable Sechikubo is still struggling to get, the signatures. We've seen allegations where they are, what can we call it, connivances. They are more of syndicates when it comes to budgeting, and it's more of a game where people want to get as much budgetary allocations towards their MDAs as possible. So there has been allegations of syndicates to ensure that, some of these agencies, MDAs, get a fair share of the budget. So I think that's now what brings us to the current uproar of the arrests, where allegedly one of the, I think, long-term struggling agencies, the Uganda Human Rights Commission, has come out now to blow the whistle against some members of Parliament, that they were being demanded a 20% share of their allocation. I think 20% is a lot. If you have a budget of about 200 billion, 20% is about, if I'm not mistaken, it's more than 20, it's about 40 billion. Sure. Imagine that's going to an individual. And we've been seeing these individuals having very pompous lifestyles. And as Ugandans, it's quite sad that we don't question their sources of wealth. Even when the Inspector General of Government comes out with campaigns such as the lifestyle audit, these campaigns do not bite. Imagine a member of Parliament driving a personalized, licensed plate. And the expenditure of a member of Parliament beyond your salary, you have to contribute to your constituencies. So roughly, it's estimated that an MP will spend not less than 10 million per month within her constituency. So imagine the little salary you get, because they call it little, and you're spending about 10 million. That means you remain with relatively less. Now, where do you get the extra cash to finance your pompous lifestyles? These guys are building apartments, they are owning expensive cars, buying huge plots of land and things like that, and we don't come out to question. And I think that also stems from the law that we created. One of it is that we decided that these guys should resign. So when you're going into politics, you have to resign. That means politics is made, we turned it into a full-time job, and that's already a problem. Because if you focus on politics, that means it's a do or die.
Sure.
So without it, it's more of a game of survival. So that's one of it. Then also the qualifications to enter into Parliament, I think we don't have limitations to that beyond A6 and stuff like that. It also becomes a problem if you let everyone in. There's, I think they call it garbage in, garbage out. The quality of representation then becomes undermined. But also the fact that we've made politics to be very lucrative than the ordinary careers. That's also a problem. So every Ugandan now believes that to succeed, you have to go into parliament. And I think currently we are seeing spokespersons of government agencies resigning to align themselves to political, positions.
Sure.
I think that's a problem. And if we don't adjust and readdress ourselves, we are headed for the wrong direction.
Okay. Now, when we look at, we talked about MPs and these ones, especially who have been arrested, the trio. What is your take on when it comes to arresting members of parliament in the fight against corruption?
I think it should send a very strong message. However, the way we conduct our business as anti-corruption investigators, I think it's also normally rushed. Because ideally, you'd want to first have a strong investigation into these guys. Get the critical evidence.
Yes.
Align all your witnesses before you go and make arrests. So what happens in normal cases is that the arrests are made to excite the public. And in the end, of course, you may not see real tangible impact. For example, on the charge sheet of the trial, what we have is solicitation. Solicitation is more like requesting for a bribe, but maybe that bribe is not granted. So, of course, it's an offense of corruption, but the impact, if you arrest that person, the impact won't be as punitive as it would have been if this person actually solicited and got the money and of course invested it, because when you have such an evidence, then what happens is you'd want to do recovery. Get it?
Okay.
You'd want to do asset recovery. So all these monies that have been solicited, you'd want to recover them to the treasury. So
it would have been better we leave them to...
Exactly, because it's more like a trap, because now already it's on the leash.
Okay.
So you'd want to watch the space, what happens next. But every time you rush, of course now we have already alerted the other person that would have arrested or that belong to the same bracket. But also we've helped them to think, to up their game. So now maybe if it's been that they are soliciting, now they'll wait for these other MDAs now to come and offer. Of course, that's now another form of corruption. So and when
they will just come and
MDA
offer instead
offers,
of asking.
of course the stake will even be much higher. So we think the arrests are good, but like any other anti-corruption actor out there, we also anticipate that we may not get the desired outcome as we would have wanted. But also would wish to have more charges added to these persons. Of course, with the lifestyle audit, then we shall be able to interrogate, if you have so many assets, how did you get this money? How are you financing your rich lifestyle? And then how does government recover these monies so that they benefit the Ugandans or the Ugandan taxpayers?
Let's talk about the legality of these arrests and how effective could they be?
Of course, if it's believed that you've committed a crime, it's legal to be arrested.
They are not protected.
No. You have to be, whether you're a member of parliament or what, when it comes to corruption, we shouldn't have VIPs. We shouldn't have very important persons.
Okay.
So with the legalities, of course, it's legal that they would be arrested. And what police did was that they arraigned them in court within the time frame of 48 hours. However, what has been making rounds is the rearrests. Of course, we condemn those as much as someone has committed an offense. If you want to rearrest them, you have to come up with fresh charges or new charges on top of what has been charged. And of course, it's against that then you'll cause an arrest. But also the other fact is that the criteria of making any other arrest, sometimes it's not very followed, because I think over time it has become a practice. But ideally, when you're making an arrest, you have to of course have the arrest warrant, all the necessary documentation to arrest a person. so that this person also knows and can ably inform their lawyers and their family members that, you know, there's this and this, and of course I'm going to such and such a place, that's where you can find me. But sometimes people are just banded onto, you know, vans, and you know, you never know where they are being taken.
So MP Akamba.
Yeah, when you see the Akamba arrest, you know, the guys that arrested him were in plain clothes, they have guns, so you don't know whether they are kidnappers, you don't know where they are.
Actually, police say they don't know where he could be.
Yeah, they don't know where he is because the people that arrested him were not putting on uniform, but they just had guns. The car in which he was, you know, arrested, it was a private car. I think it was a Noah.
Yes.
So you don't know where the guy is taken, and of course we have to condemn that from the human rights perspective. As much as you'd want to see that impact when it comes to, you know, fighting and arresting most of these guys, you'd want to see the right procedures being taken. So when it comes to that, I think we are still lagging behind, but also the tricks we are using to arrest these guys. I think we rush. I think we rush, and every time we rush, we've always been losing. These guys will come out with a strong defense. They'll come out, and in the end you'll find that we don't have any offense against them.
And how about the public trust? Because we have seen now like during the Karamoja saga, the Iron Sheet saga, we have seen ministers arrested, and then this person comes back to public, and the next day he's chief guest in some function.
Yeah, so there are actually two.
And actually there is even speculation that they are given VIP treatment while in prison.
Yeah, of course, someone who is educated beyond a certain level, and maybe you occupy certain level of office, you can't be mixed with, you know, any other ordinary inmate. So even in prison, of course, you'll have that special kind of treatment. You can read your papers, you have there are certain entitlements, of course, and that's everywhere, not just here. But coming back to the public trust, of course, when you lack the public trust, it becomes a huge hindrance to fighting corruption. But here we have two issues, of course. There is the public trust and the role of the politics. So when I first address the role of the politics, is that politicians have the way of playing that sympathy card. When you look at the current happenings in parliament, every time someone is mentioned, someone is sanctioned, of course there is that sympathy part, you're witch hunting our person, then people are holding processions, placards, and these guys are not even, police doesn't do anything to them when they are, you know, assembling. But let the public come out with a genuine cause against the politicians. You'll see the tear gas and everything like that. So the role of politics is hindering our fight against corruption. But back to the public trust, of course, when you look at the ministers, some of them, you realize that they were not involved in the request of the relief items, but these items were delivered to them. Some of them even went ahead and returned these items back to, you know, either police or wherever they return them to. So when it comes to investigating corruption, and maybe you'll realize that probably these guys are supposed to not be guilty, they are supposed to be exonerated, because in the entire trail when you investigate, they are not anywhere. But because the public has lost that trust in institutions, even when they tell you now this person is innocent and this one is innocent, people will tell you that that's corruption. You don't want to touch the untouchables. Yet, when it comes to corruption, of course, there's that element of reasonable doubt. And so what happens normally is that the people or the civil servants within these agencies do most of the donkey work, make the requests, allocate the funds, channel them. So when it comes to investigations, these are the guys that are always pinpointed, because every trace of evidence leads to them. So when you arraign these guys in courts, people are like, now we are going for the small fish, the big fish are let free. So we are operating in that landscape where we entirely don't have that public trust. The public doesn't trust anything from government when it comes to fighting corruption. And it's a perception that we won't be changing very soon unless we show certain cause or impact in how we are fighting corruption.
Okay. So do these corruption practices hinder the overall governance and economic development of the country?
Wow, that's a big one, but I'll give you, I think the simplest is the IGG's cost of corruption report. If you have a budget of 52 trillion and it is estimated that every year you're losing about 20 trillion to corruption.
Wow.
Of course, that means that the money that would have gone to the road, you'll have a substandard road. They were showing a bridge of about 5 billion allocation. But when you look at that bridge, the maximum expenditure would be like 1.5 billion. You get it? So when you operate in such a landscape, and of course we have seen roads which have a budget allocation to allow for a timeline of more than 20 years. But 5 years down the road, we
It's
are now
already
filling potholes in this road. Then you give it another 15 years, we are borrowing more money to finance reconstruction of the same road. So what happens with corruption is that we have a lot of budget expenditure, but minimal when it comes to actual implementation of services. So over time we are requesting for taxes from taxpayers and all this, but the actual implementation of services is meager. So, and in the end, of course, when people are not satisfied with the quality of the services, they become hostile. I think we saw what the guys in Chikubo were doing. They are saying, okay, fine, if we were to be charged this tax, they call IFRIS a tax. Of course, IFRIS is a system. But they said, if we were to be taxed this side, at least let us go to the hospitals and we find the medicines there. Let us go in schools and we get quality education. At least let there be fairness in services. But the citizens don't feel that that's happening. So if someone asks you, what is your pay as you earn doing for you? Of course, it will be zero. If you fall sick, you go to a private facility. Your kids are studying from private schools. When you want to use transport, you can't use, there isn't any reliable public transport anymore. You spend about 3 hours in traffic jam every day. So what is your pay as you earn doing for you? So that question lingers in the mind of Ugandans, and that causes hostility, and it hampers our development.
Well, there is a lot to do with corruption. Surely, if you want to understand corruption, use a very, very keen eye in regards to knowing what is happening on ground. But well, the discussion is continuing. We are just going in for a very short break and return with more.
Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
When people die, they are good. A dead body is always good. He has done us good. We cannot replace him. There's no one who is replaceable. There's no one. But what can help you? It is to leave a good legacy that people will remember you.
Sometimes I share with my students a small story of an animal which normally is regarded to be the wisest, the hare. Once in a meeting of animals chaired by the lion, which was the king of the animals, he said that all those who are in the meeting and are not married should go out. This is for the marrieds. And then the hare put up a hand. I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Yes. What is it? He said, what about some of us who sleep like married people? Should we also go?
And may I say to those of you who are not yet married, determine what kind of family you want to raise. Because the family that you raise, the children that you get, you will either sink them or you will raise them up to be good citizens and good people in the church.
If you read Proverbs 16:1, they tell you that the plans of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord.
Because we all need love. As long as we are humans, we need love. Now he says yes, but I'm praying that you will experience the greater love.
Through the valley, even if I'm lost in the shadows, I will not fear, for I know you are with me. Please help me find him. Even if I walk through the valley, you follow me wherever I go. I will not fear, for I know you are with me.
Hello and thanks for joining us again on Heart to Heart. It is always a pleasure for us to do this every time as our guests share testimonies of what God is doing in their lives. Our prayer is that as you hear them share the stories, you will be inspired and motivated to trust God to do in your life what may seem like the impossible. As always, I'm not alone. Mono is here with me.
Heart to Heart always allows our guests to share some of their personal experiences with you and how these experiences have transformed them into better versions of themselves. Our joy is that you will be able to draw strength and encouragement from their journey.
God created the tree. Man imagined the tree becoming wood and tables and chairs and paper and syrup and oil for medicine. In the same way, God made you. Now it's up to you to imagine what you could be. The Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. The possibilities are truly endless. There's another quote I love that says, what we are is God's gift to us. What we become is our gift to God. So look at that seed that God has already placed in you. Imagine the tree that it will become and start building your table.
10-year-old Willie Myrick loves playing the drums, something he hopes one day to do at his church. Born to atheist parents, Willie was raised by his godmother, Codetta Bateman, who took him to church. It was there that he learned about God and developed a passion for the Bible.
Pastor, he talks about different scriptures, and we're on Genesis 31 now. But he tells us a little stuff about him, and he goes over it every Sunday.
This and more as 700 Club Nigeria starts now.
Hello and welcome to the 700 Club Nigeria. It's always a pleasure to be here with you.
We are glad that you could join us today.
Born in 1930, Gladys grew up on her family's farm just south of Richmond, Virginia, where she learned the value of hard work. And that would pay off for Gladys, who wanted more than what life on a country farm could offer.
You could get a scholarship if you were the first or second in your high school graduating class.
The man in our first story was passionate about media and how it worked. He was determined to make a career out of it.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives. Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
Yes, comfort and luxury at its best. Of course, that is Protea Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe. You want to check out on them, and the numbers are just down there. Below, we are talking about corruption, and this comes out after the president's revelation of corruption scandals or corruption practices in Parliament and both the Ministry of Finance. And this has sparked a lot of attention in the nation. We have seen so many people being arrested. So many people on the run, members of parliament is what we are talking about here, not any other person. This time it is the politicians on the run because of the corruption scandals in the country. But well, we are discussing about this revelation, and here today with me is Mr. David Kizito from Transparency International. And I want to pose now a question, since we are talking about parliament, and this has been going on in parliament and the Ministry of Finance. What is the role of a member of parliament in combating corruption in the country?
Of course, parliament has, actually they have, can I say, the cardinal role when it comes to this. It's the main oversight body within any government. They pass the laws. We have the committees of parliament that are supposed to do oversight over each and every MDA in this country. We've seen the COSASI, we have the PAC, the Public Accounts Committee, and the rest. And even when these accountability institutions like the Inspectorate of Government, Auditor General's Office, when they get their reports, these reports are supposed to be submitted to Parliament for approval and for adoption. So that's why every twice a year, the Inspector General of Government presents the IG report to Parliament. Then the Auditor General every year has to present the report to Parliament. So afterwards, of course, there are sets of recommendations that are detailed within these reports. And Parliament has to do follow-up. And that's why I think you are seeing Parliament following up on Lugoa, Parliament following up in what are they, the swamps where they allege, there is corruption and guys are doing mining, and So Parliament has that mandate to do all that, but also to ensure that the allocations, for example, to anti-corruption actors, are in line with what these guys want to do. So of course they'll monitor the budgets, approve your budgets, and ensure that your budget allocation will support you to do the work you want to do. So we've had discussions where you want budget increments and you have to go to Parliament and discuss, and you're like, this money this year is less and we want to do ABCD. And I think that's why some of them were arrested in an attempt to ensure that they influence increments of budgets of certain MDAs. So Parliament it's at the center of fighting corruption. They have that core role. If they want to summon someone, we've seen, I think, the Bank of Uganda scandals where they would invite, probe and even cause arrest. They were like, no, you first take this one inside. So the challenge we have now is that the powers of Parliament seem to be trimmed, either because their interests are misaligned, or because there is another invisible hand that controls things. Because when you look at most of the probes we've been seeing, the end is normally not what we would anticipate. When you look at the Bank of Uganda, when you look at what was it, the Uganda Airlines, when you look at UBOS, all these, we didn't see the end didn't really bring out what the ordinary Ugandan would have wanted to see. And I think that's where now the main problem comes in. Again, I think it's politics. What is the political position vis-a-vis the findings on ground? I think we lose out from that angle.
Okay, and now what do you think? The initial role of all this, maybe even the discussion we're having here, is to prevent corruption or to reduce it somehow. So what are those possible measures you think could be put to curb the likelihoods of the corruptions in Parliament?
One of it, I think our Parliament is too big. And every Ugandan agrees with that. So when you have a very big house, the quality of debate is undermined. One, the submissions are minimal. If someone wants to present something tangible, they need to use extra time But you have over 500 MPs who want to submit on an issue. And of course, then it gets dominated by certain, positions of political parties. So one, the size is big, so that undermines the quality of debate. When you look at how Parliament used to discuss businesses back in the days when we had less than 100 MPs, I think we used to see tangible results. But also, Parliament needs to regain its ultimate independence. If someone once is trying to collect, signatures to have essential motion, and someone tells you that our party needs to first, discuss with the head of the party to get a party position, that means as an institution you're no longer as independent as you'd have wanted to be. Then the third one is, if a certain arm of government has to first direct, for people to take measures or to, I don't know how I can call it, but if the head of the state has to first direct for people to act against errant members of parliament, yet it should have been the parliament itself or the head of the institution of parliament to clean their house. That's also another problem. So one, let parliament regain its independence. Two, we need to sanitize parliament. The house is too big. As we speak of, a rationalization of public agencies, parliament also needs to be rationalized. Then the other one is maybe they need to put in certain checks and balances within parliament to ensure that, we limit on issues of conflict of interest and things like that. I think it's becoming a lot. And also having a bit of censorship in, the members of parliament that we bring in the August House. One of those critical things would have been using the lifestyle audit even before someone comes into politics. For example, we've been struggling with laws on campaign financing and sources of campaign financing. People bring in billions and billions of cash to finance their campaign expenditure. But where are they going to recoup, their money? That's through corruption. And for us, we think if we can sanitize some of those processes, we'll see a more effective and efficient parliament.
Okay. And how important is it to involve the public or the society and maybe the media as well in preventing such scandals?
I think the media has played this role, but sometimes when it comes to the public, I think this saying has been around for a while that the quality of your representative is as good as the quality of the people that send the representatives in that house. So if the citizens are still so petty that, your vote can be bought by maybe a kilo of sugar, that means, you've already got your services. You can't demand anything from that person anymore. There's a member of parliament who gave, his constituents undergarments, what people call underwears and things like that. So that means you're already done. So
you're
if
sorted.
This guy steals your money, you're already sorted. Your deal between you and him is done.
Wow.
So we need to have that quality of voters that understand the role of the people they are, sending to parliament. We saw the umbrella. Everyone knows that where you see an umbrella, just tick. And we've seen some of these guys, 5 years in parliament, but they are not saying anything. You see, so it's not about the party, but it's about the individual you're sending to represent you. So if that person is trash, also consider yourself as a voter to be trash, because we have to put ourselves on the same weighing scale until we go beyond that and realize that we need to send, quality representatives. We shall always be in this vicious cycle.
Okay. So what is your future outlook in regards to combating corruption in an institution like Parliament?
For us, what we want Parliament to do for us when it comes to combating corruption, one, let the laws be biting. Want to see laws that are deterrent enough. And we want to see that everyone who participates in corruption, gets an example for others to learn. So that, corruption is made very, very risky. So if Parliament would beg that we have these laws in place, we've been struggling with laws on witness protection. Of course, we have so many whistleblowers out there who are shy to come and, bear witness against some of these corrupt individuals. We think those laws need to come out. We need strong laws on asset recovery. So that if someone has stolen our money and you have apartments, we can tell the Inspectorate of Government that take these apartments, start collecting rent on behalf of government. If it's a car, at least we tell you that sell this car, let the money come back and maybe let it go and construct a road. So also we need Parliament itself to initiate a debate. I think it had started, but we need it to have regulations on the size of Parliament. One of those was that probably we need two representatives per district, a woman and a man, so that we don't have this creation of constituencies every now and then you have people that don't know even who they are representing, so that we tone down on that size, and then it will help us to have representatives who represent national interests than individual interests. But beyond that, I think even anti-corruption actors, citizens, and any other person out there, when you see corruption, don't just sit on it. I think the State House Anti-Corruption Unit has a slogan: you see something, report something. When you see corruption out there, don't just look on, because this is human, and in the end we are all taxpayers. We equally lose out.
Well, maybe as we will wrap up this discussion, could you kindly give us your last remarks?
My last remarks, probably to Ugandans, I think there's no better time to fight corruption than now. We have a budget of 72 trillion Ugandan shillings, but our estimated revenue collection will be about 32 trillion. So over 40 trillion, we are still trying to understand where that money is going to come from. So of course, you and me, we shall have to pay the taxes. But more keenly, that small taxes we are paying, we have to ensure that they are doing that they are supposed to do. Otherwise, if we have all this corruption with a huge budget and with a small basket, of course we shall end up having more debts, and the impact of debt burden, we wouldn't want to go there. We would want to see us Ugandans mainly financing our development for sustainability.
Well, Mr. David Kizito from Transparency International, and he has been taking us through what the corruption scandals are like here in Uganda. So I think it is very, very important, just like he mentioned, let us not be so selfish to ourselves, to our nation, because it will come back to you. And he has said this is the right time to fight corruption because there is a big political speech that is coming up. So for all these MPs, I will not tell you that do not take them back, but it's up to you to work upon them respectively as you see. If you still embrace them, please continue, but you'll suffer the consequences when it comes to service delivery out there. So it is a collective responsibility for everyone to have corruption end. The fight is with you, the fight is with me, the fight is with every person, the fight is also with the government people you send to represent you. So you can start with it by voting otherwise when it comes to 2026. But for your own selfish reasons, we could all suffer the consequences. Well, my name is Luke Madumba Alnaitwe, and I can't say more apart from that. I want to wish you a lovely day. It has been Issues at Hand, Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Numbers are down there. Please contact them for any services you'd want from a hotel. Have yourselves a lovely day.
Issues at Hand, powered by